February 1967, Houston, Texas. The air in the press room was thick with tension as the television cameras rolled. Muhammad Ali, the heavyweight champion of the world, sat across from his next challenger, Ernie Terrell. Outside, the Houston Astrodome prepared to host what would become not just a boxing match, but a pivotal moment in American cultural history. "So, Cassius," Terrell said deliberately, emphasizing the birth name that Ali had shed 3 years prior. "You think you're going to keep that belt?" The room fell silent. Everyone knew what Terrell was doing. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was calculated, deliberate, an attempt to get under Ali's skin. Ali's eyes narrowed. For a man known for his playful trash talk and poetic boasts, his response came with unusual restraint. "My name is Muhammad Ali," he said, his voice steady but tight with controlled anger. "You know my name is Muhammad Ali." Terrell smirked and shook his head. "Whatever you say, Cassius Clay. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. This channel only exists because of you. You are important to me, and I know you value stories told with soul. If you feel something genuine just from this beginning, subscribe now. Seriously, it costs you nothing, but means everything to me as I create each story with love." The cameras captured every moment as Ali leaned forward, jabbing his finger toward Terrell. "You're acting like Uncle Tom. You know my name is Muhammad Ali, and you're going to call me Muhammad Ali." Terrell continued the provocation. "What's the matter with Clay?" Something changed in Ali's expression then. A hardening, a decision. Made. "I'm gonna punish you," he said, his voice now eerily calm. "You'll never forget it." The press ate it up. Another example of Ali's theatrical pre-fight antics, they thought. But those closest to the champion knew this was different. This wasn't about hype or selling tickets. This was about something deeper. A man fighting for the respect of his chosen identity in a country reluctant to give it. Back in his hotel room, Ali sat alone by the window overlooking the Houston skyline. The 36-story towers of the Rear city center cast long shadows as the sun began to set. His usually boisterous entourage had been sent away. He needed time to think, to process what had happened. 3 years earlier, he had shocked the nation by announcing his conversion to Islam and his rejection of what he called his slave name, Cassius Clay. The decision came at enormous personal cost. Sponsors fled. The public turned on him. Sports commentators refused to use his new name. Then came his stance against the Vietnam War. "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong." Words that would soon lead to his arrest, the stripping of his titles, and exile from the sport he dominated. But before that storm fully hit, he had this fight. Perhaps his last for years. Ali's hands, usually so quick and nimble in the ring, clenched into fists as he gazed out at the city. The disrespect from Terrell cut deep. It wasn't just about a name. It was about his right to define himself, to stand firm in his convictions despite the consequences. The telephone rang, breaking his concentration. It was his trainer, Angelo Dundee. "How you feeling, champ?" Dundee asked, concern evident in his voice. "I'm going to teach him a lesson, Angie," Ali replied quietly. "This isn't just another fight. Don't let him get in your head. Remember the strategy we—" "No," Ali interrupted. "This isn't about strategy anymore. This is about respect." The silence on the other end of the line told Ali that Dundee understood. This wouldn't be like the Liston fights, where Ali had danced and frustrated his opponent into submission. This would be something else entirely. On the night of February 6, 1967, 37,000 people packed the Houston Astrodome. Millions more tuned in on television. They expected to see a championship boxing match. What they witnessed instead was a public reckoning. Ali entered the ring with none of his usual pre-fight theatrics. No poems, no predictions, just a cold, focused stare directed at Terrell. The energy radiating from the champion was palpable, even through television screens across America. This was a different Ali than the public had ever seen. The bell rang. Round one began. Ali moved with his characteristic grace, but there was something different about his approach. He wasn't dancing away as he normally did. He stayed closer, more dangerous. Within minutes, he had established his dominance, landing crisp jabs that snapped Terrell's head back. Then came the question that would echo through boxing history. "What's my name?" Ali demanded, as he landed a sharp right hand. Terrell, already developing swelling around his left eye, didn't respond. "What's my name?" Another combination, perfectly placed. If this story has made you feel something already, no matter how small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and subscribe now. The pattern continued into the second round, then the third. Ali was in complete control, showcasing his skills while deliberately extending the punishment. By the fourth round, it became clear to everyone watching, Ali could end this fight whenever he chose. But that wasn't his goal. "What's my name?" he repeated, after landing particularly brutal combinations. In living rooms across America, the question resonated beyond its immediate context. In a nation deeply divided by the Civil Rights Movement and the Vietnam War, Ali's insistence on being recognized by his chosen name carried profound symbolism. Here was a black man demanding respect on his own terms, not just from his opponent, but from a society that often denied him the dignity of self-definition. Howard Cosell, commentating for ABC, captured the moment's significance. "We are witnessing something beyond sport here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. This is a man fighting for something more precious than any championship belt." By the seventh round, Terrell's face was a mask of pain and swelling. His left eye had completely closed. Still, Ali didn't move for the knockout. Instead, he controlled the pace, landing punishing blows while continuing his relentless questioning. In the stands, the crowd's reaction had transformed. What began as excitement for a championship bout had become something more complex. A collective witnessing of one man's public stand for dignity. James Baldwin, the renowned writer who was among the spectators that night, would later write, "In that ring, with that question, Ali was fighting not just Terrell, but the machinery of a society that seeks to name and define you against your will." As the fight progressed, the temperature in the Astrodome seemed to rise with the intensity of Ali's performance. Outside, the unusually warm February night in Houston reflected the heated moment taking place within. This wasn't just a boxing match anymore. It was a cultural flashpoint playing out on national television. By the 13th round, the one-sidedness of the contest had become almost uncomfortable to watch. Terrell, barely able to see through swollen eyes, continued to absorb punishment. But still, Ali didn't end it. "What's my name?" he asked again and again, his voice now audible to ringside reporters. In his corner between rounds, Angelo Dundee pleaded with his fighter. "You've made your point, champ. Put him away now." Ali simply shook his head. "Not yet. He hasn't learned yet." As round 14 began, a shift occurred in the crowd's mood. Some began to feel that Ali's continued punishment of a clearly defeated opponent had crossed a line from justice to cruelty. Others understood the deeper meaning behind the relentless questioning. This wasn't about Terrell anymore. It was about every commentator, every newspaper, every official who had refused to acknowledge Ali's chosen identity. The fight went the full 15 rounds. When the final bell rang, there was no question about the outcome. Ali had dominated every minute of every round. The judge's unanimous decision was a mere formality. In his post-fight interview, a barely marked Ali stood stoically as Cosell approached with the microphone. "You punished him severely," Cosell observed. "Was that deliberate?" Ali's response was measured but firm. "I'm not just a boxer. I belong to the world of human beings," he said, sweat still glistening on his brow under the bright lights. "When a man insults me by calling me by a name I've rejected, he's not just questioning my name, he's questioning my humanity." The interview was broadcast to millions of homes across America, bringing Ali's perspective directly into living rooms where families sat in varying states of discomfort or understanding. The cultural fault lines of the nation were exposed in eternity reactions to the fight. Some viewers saw a cruel display of unnecessary punishment. Others recognized a profound statement on identity and respect. The next morning, newspaper headlines across the country reflected this division. The New York Times reported, "Ali dominates Terrell in 15-round decision." The Chicago Defender went deeper. "More than a fight. Ali forces nation to say his name." In diners and barber shops, in offices and on factory floors, Americans debated what they had witnessed. For the black community especially, Ali's insistence on his chosen name resonated deeply. It reflected their own struggles for self-determination and dignity in a society that often denied both. Martin Luther King Jr., who had been critical of Ali's involvement with the Nation of Islam but supportive of his stance against the Vietnam War, commented, "Whatever one thinks of his religious beliefs, Muhammad Ali is raising profound questions about who gets to determine a man's identity in our society." For Ali, the victory came with a price. Sports writers who had previously praised his boxing artistry now labeled him cruel and vindictive. The boxing establishment, already wary of his political and religious stances, became even more hostile. But in the streets of Harlem, in the neighborhoods of Chicago's South Side, in black communities throughout America, the message was received. Here was a man who refused to compromise on the fundamental right to define himself, regardless of the consequences. 3 months after the Terrell fight, on April 28, 1967, Muhammad Ali reported to the Armed Forces Induction Center in Houston. Consistent with his principles, he refused induction into the military. "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong," he reiterated to reporters gathered outside. The consequences were swift and severe. Within hours, the New York State Athletic Commission suspended his boxing license and stripped him of his title. Other boxing commissions followed suit. At 25 years old, in the prime of his career, Muhammad Ali was effectively banned from his profession. As he left the induction center that day, surrounded by a mixture of protesters and supporters, someone from the crowd called out, "Hey Cassius, what are you going to do now?" Ali turned toward the voice, his expression calm and dignified. "My name is Muhammad Ali," he replied, "and I'm going to continue being who I am." The next 3.5 years saw Ali exiled from boxing, his passport revoked, his income decimated. He supported himself by speaking at colleges, where he found audiences receptive to his message of self-determination and principled resistance. During these wilderness years, something remarkable happened. The name Muhammad Ali took hold in the public consciousness. Newspapers that had stubbornly continued to refer to him as Cassius Clay gradually changed their editorial policies. Broadcasters who had made a point of using his birth name began consistently calling him Muhammad Ali. The Terrell fight, with its unforgettable refrain, "What's my name?" had planted a seed that continued to grow even in Ali's absence from the ring. It became impossible to discuss the man without confronting the question of what to call him, and in that linguistic battleground, Ali was slowly winning. By the time the Supreme Court overturned his conviction in 1971, allowing him to return to boxing, the transformation was complete. He was Muhammad Ali, not just legally, not just personally, but in the collective understanding of a nation that had been forced to reckon with his insistence on self-definition. In the decades that followed, as Ali regained his heavyweight title and eventually became one of the most beloved figures in American history, the Terrell fight remained a pivotal moment in his journey. It represented something beyond sport, a public declaration that one's identity is not negotiable, that dignity demands respect. Today, as we look back on that February night in Houston, we recognize it as more than just another boxing match. It was a moment when sport transcended its boundaries to become a platform for a profound statement about human dignity and self-determination. In the ring that night, with every punch accompanied by that persistent question, "What's my name?" Muhammad Ali taught America a lesson about respect that resonates to this day. If you've made it this far and felt every word, won't you leave without subscribing? I tell these stories with my heart in my hand to reach people like you, who feel, who get emotional, who live. If this truly touched you, give back, comment, subscribe. Come be part of this family with me until the next video.